Hi, guys, and welcome to Tickers, the new series on the Limitless podcast, where we discuss listed companies on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I'm Matthew,
And I'm Thaon.
and today we'll be talking about Lasco Manufacturing, ticker as LASM. But before we get into the video, we would love if you guys would subscribe if you're watching on YouTube right now. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Also, please follow our podcast on your podcasting platform of choice. We're on all podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of them. It really means a lot. And without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to share my screen. You guys know I love my Notion.
Notion should sponsor us, by the way. We should reach out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Lasco Manufacturing, right? So we'd have our usual layouts in terms of how we try to analyze companies and tickers. Let us know if you guys like tickers or any suggestions. So the first thing I want to look into is how does Lasco Manufacturing make money? So essentially, they are the manufacturing arm of the Lasco group of companies. So, if you're a Jamaican, I'm sure basically every Jamaican has heard of, the Lasco brand before. Like I'm showing on the screen here, you're just seeing an example of some of the different products. I'm sure that there probably is not like one Jamaican who has not bought at least one Lasco product in their entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is essentially the manufacturing arm. They make all of these different products, right?
What's your favorite product from them?
Probably Icool. I don't drink Icool a lot, but
really,
yeah. You? I used to drink the food drink when I was a kid, but I haven't had it in
drink, bro.
I haven't had it in a long time.
Nah,
You still have
definitely
it?
the food drink. Yeah, I still have it. I haven't. Nah, I also haven't had it in a long time, but I saw it in the supermarket last week, and I bought it because I have shakes now in the morning. I'm medicine to just drop some in my shakes. I'm trying out different things in my shakes. I tried Suppligen, tried almond milk. I tried a bunch of different stuff just to say what really fits and what's like enough calories and so on. So, but yeah, I grew up on the food drink. Grew up on that. That was like morning. When your kids have tea, that's like my morning tea.
Yeah, I used to have it. Yeah, I used to have it in the morning too.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Hot.
Yeah,
hot or cold? Yeah, hot, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's just that's probably one of their most, I guess, iconic products. But they hit all kind of different stuff. So that they do the beverages, so they have water, juices, food drink. They do food and kind of food related stuff. So they sell oils, vinegars, a lot of tin foods, sausages, peas, corned beef, mackerel, ketchup, baby food, syrup, and they even do other things. So like outside of food, so they do like soaps and diapers. So like a lot of baby related products. And I just have some. Let me show you this.
Yeah, take that from Lashusan's website.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, so I just embedded it here. So this is just an example of some of the different products here. So you have the Lasco fruit drink, chocolate, the Lasco Step 1 formula, their vegetable oil I'd mentioned before. They sell toothpaste, their Jack Mackerel, they sell soap, lots of different flavors at Icool. So they really touch on like a lot of different food and food related products. If you go to the supermarket, you're gonna see them, all of their products in almost, a lot of those different aisles. So that they've expanded their category, I'd say, over the years.
No, yeah, this is significant still. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I've bought a lot of their products over the years. I mean, I feel like everybody has, to be honest. But wow, it's significant.
Yeah. So they manufacture all of those different products, and they also do. So they manufacture them, and then they are sold in Jamaica, and Jamaica is their main source of revenue. But they also do sell in other countries. But right now, exports is really like a big portion of their revenues. So what I saw was that it's under 10% of revenues. So I think it was on the Mayberry Forum in 2021. They said exports was about 6% of their revenues, and then 3 years later, on another Mayberry forum, they said it's about 5%. So I guess, since then the company has grown, so that revenue is still, like, they have grown exports since, but it's still not a very huge portion. They are still mostly Jamaica based. But they do export to some countries, so they mentioned some of them. They export to the United States, to Trinidad, to Guyana, a lot of other Caribbean countries. But exports isn't a very huge thing for them right now, but that may not be the case in a few years. And in terms of some other stuff, in that manufacturing space, you have to kind of look at what are some of their competitors. They're going up against some really big companies, right? So there's the Grace Kennedy, the GK. Let us know, guys, if any of these companies, if you want us to do a stock review on them. We'll have a link in the description that you guys can vote at. There's the Seprod, there's the Wisinco, there's the Jamaican teas. And if you look at that, a lot of these companies are also listed, so they can, raise money through the Jamaica Stock Exchange also if they need to do these other things. So a lot of these, and then also, like, if you even look at, for example, something like Grace Kennedy isn't just manufacturing and distribution. Like, they have a whole financial side. So I did a Excel sheet here. I love my Excel sheets. And I was looking to compare. So I was comparing Wisinco. Oh, and once again, guys, remember, if you're not on, like, and we love our audio listeners, but this is just a reminder that on YouTube you can listen and you can also see what we're trying to show. We'll share our screens and you can see our handsome faces. So this was just showing you some of the comparison or some of their competitors. So you see Wisinco, the big dog. I just pulled up the market cap, which is market capitalization. You just take how many shares are in the company and you multiply it by the stock price. And this was the stock price at the time that I had done the table. You can see out of all of these, Wisinco is the largest. Wisinco is 79 billion market cap, just basically 80 billion market cap. Grace Kennedy is below. But remember, Grace Kennedy isn't just manufacturing and distribution. Grace Kennedy has a whole financial arm. So if they were to split off the foods division, it would be less. Then you also have the Seprod, which is also big, 63 billion. And then you have LASM, which is just under about 30 billion in terms of market cap. And then you have its sister company, LASD, which we're going to talk about another time. Lasco Distributors. They essentially are the distribution arm of the Lasco group of companies. And the other thing I was comparing was the actual revenue and profit. So if you look at it, LASM, out of its peers here, is actually one of the smallest in terms of the revenues. But if you look at it, their profit margin is the highest. I mean, still it's a bit different because, like, for example,
none of them
the
are
Wisinco,
purely
manufacturing they're
companies.
not manufacturers, and then manufacturing companies will tend to have a higher profit margin. Because Seprod is both manufacturing and distribution. If you notice, LASD has a lower profit margin. So it is the distribution business does give you lower profit margins, but you can get higher revenues. So you can see how Lasco Manufacturing compares to its peers. So yeah, it doesn't make as much revenue, but because its profit margins are higher, it's still putting out a ton of profit. They are one of the most, like that just under 2.4 billion in profit. That's a big deal. The other thing I looked at was one of the valuation metrics that I guess is probably the most common valuation metric, the price to earnings ratio. For those that don't know, most people just call it PE. Essentially, what you're trying to do, you take the profits of the business here. So, for example, I did it for Lasco, which is just about 2.4 billion. You divide the profit by the amount of shares, where you get the earnings per share, which makes sense because you're taking the earnings, which is the profit, and you're dividing it by the number of shares. And then to get the PE, you take the stock price and you divide it by the earnings per share. And so if you can say, for example, LASM, a PE of 12, and generally, the lower the PE, generally the better, not always, but if you're comparing two companies,
more undervalued, they would say.
Like, some people say it's more undervalued. But the other thing I noted here is that Grace Kennedy, even though Grace Kennedy has a lower PE ratio than LASM, it's like 8.74. Grace Kennedy once again has that financial side, and then the financial companies tend to trade at lower price to earnings, the lower PEs essentially. So you can see in terms of PE, it's actually one of the, I guess, on the lower end, like comparing it to like the Seprod and the Wisinco. And then I took the average of these, which was the 12. The 12 there. So, and the other thing I looked at was actually their balance sheet, Lasco Manufacturing's balance sheet. I looked at it for June 2024 versus June 2023, and I was seeing, okay, how did it change across that period? Because some of the things that stood out to me is that they have a ton of cash and cash equivalents, because they have like 3.7 billion in short-term investments, which that can easily just go to cash, not to, pretty fast. And they grew that between June 2023 to June 2024 by over 2 billion. And also just the amount of cash that they have in bank. They're sitting on tons of cash right now. If you think about it with like interest rates and stuff, they're getting quite a good return on that cash. That's pretty big. Like, they're now sitting on like 6 billion in cash and cash equivalents. And then the other thing to hear, they don't have any long-term debt. Like, they're not like a heavy leverage company, like zero. Like, these guys, they have a lot of they have a lot of room, because they have a ton of cash and they don't have any big loans or anything to pay off, so they can, and the business itself is profitable. It's giving them enough cash that they need. They can finance what they need outside, within the company. They don't necessarily have to go to someone to borrow money.
What company this reminds me of? This kind of reminds me of Wisinko, because Wisinko is very similar. Guys, if you like Wisinko, I want to hear from the chairman, William Mafood. We did an episode with him, so you can check that out, and we'll leave that in the description. But yeah, this reminds me of Wisinko in terms of very little debt, sitting on a lot of cash, right? And they're both manufacturing and manufacturing companies. So yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of the other things I was looking at. Some of the other things that I thought about, I don't know if you know about the sugary drinks tax. So Jamaica doesn't have a sugary drinks tax yet, but there have been talks, what I've seen, like based on like some articles, that our government is possibly looking into it, because essentially, a lot of these sugary drinks, a lot of people are drinking these sugar drinks, especially Jamaicans. So there was some information that I saw that over 75% of Jamaican adults, this was from the Ministry of Health, 75% of Jamaican adults drink at least one sugary drink a day. And when you look at some of the statistics show that people who drink 1 to 2 sugary drinks a day have an increased risk of certain illnesses by like 26 or 25%. So that's illnesses like diabetes. So, and then we also know that people of like African descent, like us, we naturally have a high risk of diabetes. So if you already have a baseline risk that even if you didn't drink sugary drinks, you could still get diabetes, and then you also drink a lot of these sugary drinks, you're going to further increase your risk. Like, some people don't even know. Do you remember that, there's diabetes, there's like main types, there's type 1 and type 2. Most people say, oh, type 1 is the one that like is genetic or whatever, but type 2 diabetes actually has a stronger genetic link than type 1.
Genetic link. Yeah.
So
that was always weird to me in med school, until they said it and until I'm seeing it. But it makes sense. It's just triggered basically environmentally. So, doing things like having sedentary lifestyle, drinking a sugary drink, or just eating a lot of like carbs and so on. And I mean, in reality, this makes sense. When you say over 75% of Jamaican adults drink at least one sugary drink a day, because I see people buy a patty cocoa bread and a Pepsi. Right? That's just the norm. Like, a lot of people just buy lunch and they're not buying
or
water.
A Coke.
Or a Coke, yeah,
Not
or
attacking
something
any brands
else.
here.
Yeah. You're fueling the agenda, Preston. But it's just the norm. And even if you buy like fast food, right, a combo is with most people are weirded out when I say, yo, can I get like if I'm at Wendy's and I buy a water, right? My brother's like, why are you buying water for? You can just drink water at home. I'm just like, no. I mean, even though I do carry on a water bottle everywhere I go. I'm sure it is. Yeah. Even though I do carry around a water bottle everywhere I go, and I probably have water in the car. The fact that I'm not buying a soda automatically, yes, your water bottle is in my car, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but that automatically makes me not want to drink soda because I just won't have it, right?
Mm.
So it's a thing I've been trying to cut down, and it's a thing I've noticed that most people just once you're drinking or eating some food, you always go buy some juice. So yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's
So,
another crazy thing too?
mm-hmm.
Before we move on, I think I remember seeing a long time ago in the I feel like maybe when we were in mid school, there was a court case against Wisinko, I believe. Um about that, stating in schools, I think they wanted to almost was it Heart? I'm not sure, but they wanted to almost ban sugary drinks
Yeah, there was
or
something that they
ban
had
life.
done that I don't know if it was just with Cinco. I think it was, there was
I don't
something
think it
with,
was just
yeah,
Wisinko, you're
trying
right.
to reduce the sugar drinks in schools specifically. But
Yeah.
the sugar drinks tax, what I've seen is that it's not just specific to schools. So
Mm-hmm.
even though Jamaica doesn't have one yet, there have been talks about Jamaica possibly getting one. And other countries have implemented the sugar drinks tax or different forms of it. So what I saw was that if you think about it, say you have two drinks, one of them has, much more sugar, one of them doesn't really have that much sugar. You'd want the person to drink the one with less sugar so that, they
Mm-hmm.
don't get diabetes, so that you don't get all the complications or the issues with diabetes. So if you put the tax, if say the drinks at first baseline were the same price, if you put the tax on the more expensive one, that can then possibly encourage the person to either not drink any sugary drink, or they just say, hey, maybe I drink the one with less sugar. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you can make that one more expensive to try to reduce the likelihood that they, drink the sugary drink. And the other thing is that then puts pressure on the manufacturer, because the manufacturer might say, okay, my drink that used to have this amount of sugar, no one is buying it anymore. Let me make a different version of it that has less sugar, that would fit and not get the tax. So it and there are other countries that have actually implemented it. So I saw there were some statistics saying that Barbados implemented it. They had a 10% public health tax on it in 2015. And what happened was that they saw a 4.3% drop in the weekly sales of sugary drinks, and a 7.5% increase in bottled water sales within the first year. So people drank more water and then less sugary drinks based on that. And it's not the only, there's tons of other different countries that have implemented this and um have seen similar results. So I was thinking that, for example, for Lasco, this would be interesting, and even the Lasco's competitors too, because if, say, for example, you were a company that was slow to, I guess, adopt the, say, reduced sugar or something, and then your drink is now much more expensive than your competitors, and everybody's now flocks to your competitors' products, because Lasco actually has a reduced sugar version, and they've had it for a few years, a reduced sugar version of Icool with about half as much sugar. And I even
Yeah.
looked at the cost. So so you see in my screen. So on the left is the Lasco Icool grape, 500 ml. Just this is the basic one with the usual amount of sugar. It's about $102 at this website. Big up. This is actually funny. This is Mailpack. I don't know if you've ever used this. Mailpack. They actually have a shopping website that you can buy stuff from the supermarket.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. I actually got, you remember, was it 2 years ago when I had bought
Price
the,
Mart?
no. I bought you something for your birthday, the bottle of rum.
The 12 year?
Yeah, I actually got it from this because the supermarket didn't have it. It was a time when it was out of stock, and then I looked at this website and I found out, wait, they actually have it in stock, and then they delivered it to my
Oh,
house. I don't even think they really charged me for the delivery. I think it went over, I guess, a certain price. So yeah,
interesting.
so
Okay, cool.
so yeah, so $102 for the regular sugar one, and the reduced sugar one is $110. So it is slightly more expensive, but that's right now. So think about this. Suppose the sugar drinks tax comes into play, and that then makes the regular one with the extra sugar essentially more expensive than the reduced sugar one. So then people might say, hey, let's go to the reduced sugar one. Mm-hmm. So I think Lasco, it makes sense that they're not being they're being more proactive, I guess. And I don't think they're the only ones. I'm sure the other companies are probably doing other versions of that. But I think that's something to look out for, to see how the sugary drinks tax affects. Because I mean, at the end of the day,
can come into play. Yeah,
they also sell water. So, because we mentioned that they have the Icool brand. That Icool has water, Icool has juice. So, one of the, like, for example, in Barbados, we had said that when people drank less juice, they drank more water. So they could just shift some of their products. I guess I don't know how much, what their profit margins are on the water versus the juice.
And versus the total market share, because not necessarily anyone that buys Icool drink prefers Icool water. They could just prefer regular water or 876 or any of those other brands. So we don't really know how that could possibly affect them. You know what this reminds me of too? You know, we have like a tax on, in terms of governments putting tax for the health benefits of the population. It's like in public health campaigns and stuff like that. It's like the tobacco tax. There's a tax on like cigarettes, and I think it's super high. It's like 40. I think it's over 40% tax for retail cigarettes. Yeah, man. And that's to try and curb, smoking and lung cancer and all of it. All of those smoking effects, COPD, etc. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be, I don't want to say I'm for the sugary drinks tax, but there's a Thaon that's a capitalist and the Thaon that's a doctor, and there's a cognitive dissonance right now. So let's just leave it alone.
Yeah, the other thing is that I saw something that sometimes the tax money can go towards certain things. So like the tax money could go towards, bettering schools or like school improvement, or maybe it could go towards the Ministry of Health or something like that. So it could go towards helping to build a hospital. So I don't know. We'll see.
Programs and stuff like that. That would be cool.
Yeah. So that was something that I was looking at. The other thing is that LASM and other, all manufacturers, I guess, across the world and Jamaica, they haven't, there are a lot of times you'll see them in their reports that mention, oh, we're having supply chain issues. So I saw even in their report up to June this year, they were saying that they're having supply chain issues. And they said that one of the issues that is happening is related to the Panama Canal. So I actually did some research on this. So essentially what's going on in Panama is that their canal, you need a lot of water for it to actually work. So there's actually let me show you. I don't know if you've ever seen this. So the ship, the ship going across, it's like these little different segments. To get the ship across, you have to put water into each segment to get it to go up. So it's not like just going straight through a level playing field. It's like you have to go up essentially a hill and gradually put more and more water. So when there's like a drought, it affects it. So the water is more scarce. So it makes it harder to go through, and less ships are actually able to go through. And then when I was looking at, do you see this map?
Yeah.
So say you're in New York and you want to send something to the other side of the US.
Yeah.
You could cut through the Panama Canal here if it was working. But suppose there's a big backlog in the Panama Canal because they're having that drought. The other way to get around is much, 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 much longer. It's like almost three times as long. So can you imagine that all of that's going to take more time, more money? What if something could happen to the ship? What if you face a storm? What if you face pirates? There's all kind of stuff you'd have to face. So it's like it's going to be more expensive. Oh, that's not well. So there's another
South America.
area in the world. No. There's another area in the world where they actually have pirates.
No, there's several places around Africa.
No, there's another canal.
Captain Phillips.
I think it's this. Yeah, but I think it's a Suez Canal.
Suez, maybe.
I think like they've been facing a lot of pirates and stuff there, so it's so that takes a lot of time. So imagine, suppose LASM used to get some products from over here, like San Francisco, and then that person would just come around here, cut into Panama Canal, deliver it quickly. Suppose they now have to go all the way around to get it to them. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be facing the. I mean, I guess what you can do sometimes is stock up on inventory, but then if you stock up on inventory and then suppose you get stuck with inventory, you need warehouse space for that. So there's a lot of issues with that. So, but they said they're trying their best to navigate the supply chain issues, working with different suppliers and stuff, finding different routes. And I was trying to see like how much of their stuff they necessarily source. So I saw
Mm-hmm.
different things. So there was an article last year in the Observer that had said that a lot of their materials are imported. And I looked into their prospectus, but this was from years ago. This was 2010. They mentioned that
2010, yeah.
they do source some stuff from Mexico. So they say they source some stuff from Mexico. They source oats from Canada. They source stuff from Ireland. I don't know if that still is the case, but they have stuff from all these different countries. So if shipping issues are happening, it's gonna affect them because they may not be able to supply their products. And then say you not usually buy this, but then someone else comes with a product because Lasco can't supply it.
Mm-hmm.
You may just end up losing a customer. Suppose they like their product more,
True. There was a time,
or
I believe, there was, well, it wasn't supply chain issues, but there were droughts for like milk products. For Surge Island. I remember seeing that and I'm just like, well, what milk and this is before I realized I was lactose intolerant. So I was very dumb. But yeah, it's just like what milk am I gonna buy now? And I switched to almond milk and I never went back. So they've just lost a whole customer. So imagine that happening where you try to now find an alternative because your product isn't there and you end up liking the alternative. You lose customers. So yeah, it's
yeah.
possible it can do more harm than good in several ways.
And just to mention a bit, Lasco Distributors, they are the distributor of Lasco Manufacturing, but we will do a separate episode on Lasty. And in terms of some of the plans of Lasco Manufacturing, they have been mentioning things like acquisitions for a long time. Remember, we said that they have a ton of cash, they don't have any debt, they can afford to take on the debt if they need. They've also migrated to the main market, so if they've now opened themselves up, they could raise more money. Because before they were kind of limited to being on the junior market. Remember, the junior market right now you can only raise 500 million Jamaican. The government is hoping to increase it to 750 million, but suppose they wanted to raise 2 billion in equity and 2 billion in some loans or debt to then finance some acquisition. They couldn't do that when they were on the junior market. So the fact that they've now migrated to the main market has allowed them that opportunity if they were to do that. But one of the things that they speak about is that they don't just want to. So I should big up the Mayberry Investor Forum. They actually had the CEOs or managing directors and stuff from the Lasco group of companies, and they said that there's a question that they said that most mergers or most acquisitions, a lot of them tend to fail or not really be accretive or good for us, the shareholders. And a lot of times it's because, it's not like the proper acquisition. You have to do a lot of due diligence on it. And so they actually said that, we are willing to do the acquisition, but we don't just want to do an acquisition or buy a company because it's the cool thing. And we just say, we bought this company. We want to make sure that the company fits into our brand and our ethos and stuff. So I'm looking forward to those acquisitions. I will try to put in the clip of what they said about acquisitions in the video.
Then I would add, we have grown to this point organically. That has the investment was with that in mind.
Yeah.
And that is not to say we're not looking for possible mergers and acquisitions, but we're going to do it carefully.
Yeah.
You guys know better than I do. Most acquisitions and mergers fail. Am I correct, Gary?
Yes.
And they've failed because the appropriate due diligence is not done. And that is the single largest failure.
Correct.
And acquiring company doesn't quite understand the business that they're acquiring.
Yeah.
And these are the two things. We have to understand the business. And I mentioned earlier that we are in the nutrition, the food and beverage field. That can be extended to include meals, prepared meals, nutritious drinks, meal solutions. People are going for, these days, they're going for a lot of pre-prepared meals. Easy to prepare, easy to consume. So that is our ballpark. That is where we want to be, right? There's still a lot of organic growth to extract from the business.
The other thing that they've been doing, they've been upgrading. So they've added some more manufacturing space. I think it was June this year. They said they spent about 10 million US to expand some floors at some of their manufacturing lines to be able to supply, produce more products. So they have about 515,000 square feet. So they've added about 17% in terms of manufacturing space. So they want to be able to, manufacture more product to then be able to supply more of the Jamaican market and then possibly also exports. Other thing too, the big thing that I saw this year, they have actually hinted at possibly even merging Lasco Manufacturing and Lasco Distributors. So you'd have a manufacturing and a distribution company. I saw the first place I saw them mention this was on, I think, the Mayberry Investor Forum. They mentioned, hey, we'd be willing to possibly do a merger, and they have, I guess, that partnership with Mayberry. Mayberry helped list the Lasco group of companies. So
True.
would they? I don't think they'd be against helping them possibly merge.
From Limitless podcast, is Mayberry looking to assist in financing any acquisition for LASM and LASD? Who is Limitless podcast? I hope it's not a Mayberry employee, but I'm certainly trying to tease them to do an acquisition or two with all of that cash. So they cannot answer you, Limitless podcast, but I can. I'm certainly pitching deals at them where we can and trying to encourage them to grow. Most of the growth that we've seen is organic growth. So with all of that cash, we would like to see some inorganic growth, I think is what Limited Podcast is saying.
The other thing too, in the Excel sheets, I don't know if you noticed,
You did a merger.
I had a
LASMD.
So if it were to be LASMD and you were to compare it, look at, for example, the market cap here, but no, the revenue was the interesting part. And so this would be if they kept the same level of revenues. LASMD would be doing 41 billion. Wisynco is not that far off. Wisynco is 54 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That suddenly makes them a much, and I don't think with some of the plans that they're laying out. I mean, Wisynco is also laying out a lot of plans too. So, but I was just like, wow, like that makes the Lasco group quite a powerful group, because you have that high profit margin from the manufacturing side, and you also have the distribution. There could maybe they could save some costs and stuff like that too.
How would they save?
Yeah.
Well, I guess in terms of, stock exchange, but they probably already saved a ton of costs together. So, but there could be more synergies. I like the thought of the acquisition that you're talking about, and I think, well, I had a question for you in terms of Sir Lascelles Chin, may he rest in peace. He passed in the past year. But I want to know how do you think? Oh, I guess you're gonna go into management and ownership and all of those things soon.
Yeah, I guess we can go into it now.
Oh, sure.
So I was looking at. So this is the top 10 shareholders in Lasco Manufacturing. So you can see that the top 10 own a good portion of the company, 85% of the company. The largest shareholder is East West St. Lucia, which I think is Lascelles Chin, the late Lascelles Chin. I think it was like his holding company.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry. That owns like 50% of the company. And then also he directly owns some through 30%. Government, National Insurance Fund owns like 2%. Mayberry Jamaican Equities, Mayberry stock portfolio, and you can look, they even bought more within the last quarter. And then you have like Sagicor. I guess you were alluding to this, like what, because the thing is, I guess I don't know how his success, I don't know, like, I'm not sure how many kids he has. I think he had a wife at one point, but I think it was his ex-wife. So I don't know how this ownership, I know there was like a court case at one point with that. So I don't know, I guess it depends, like who ends up getting these shares. How did he set it up? Is it like, if he has children, his children get it? Do his children, still want to keep the shares? I don't know. So this, I guess what you're trying to allude to is what's that could be a possible.
Like? There could be a split. Somebody could sell some shares. Somebody wants to possibly exit, or
a takeover.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what that succession would look like, but interesting to watch. It's funny how we say Succession, and every time I say it, it reminds me of the TV show Succession. But
yeah, good show.
Very
The other
real.
thing too that I found interesting, James Rawl, who I think is, I'm trying to remember if his position is CEO or managing director. He actually doesn't own any shares in LASM, based on if this is correct. But then he actually owns shares in LASD, which I was like, that's interesting. Yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah. And what else on LASM? So that's ownership, and then also I guess, oh yeah, trading of the stock. So over
Yeah,
last year, it has
interesting.
performed pretty. Over last year, it has performed pretty well. You know, they graduated to the main market. If you look at it, they graduated earlier this year in like February here, and stock price was like, or just about $5, and now it's at, you know, about $7 today. Over the last year, it's coming from about $5.
It's up 40%.
Yeah, around that. Yeah, and let me look at the Q. You're getting units at like $7 or so. Yeah, so that was. So I guess what I want to see is, I think the merger could be definitely interesting. Like, I'm wondering how they could do that. Like, when I'm trying to think. Okay, which would be the bigger play? Would it be last to own shares in last M, to own shares
Or
in
to own
last
shares in
D?
last D.
Yeah.
Maybe when we talk about last D, we expound a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
Because owning shares in, what could be the bigger play indeed?
Yeah, I guess so.
One to watch, eh?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But
Well,
yep, that's my
comprehensive.
thoughts, guys. That's my thoughts. Let me know, what you guys' thoughts, or what are your thoughts on Lasco Manufacturing? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Yeah.
All right. Excellent job, Preston. Limitless.